the shot that I animated where he was throwing up the book, I scaled his body up so you could see like the book in his neck. But if you do that, it scales the scales up and it looks really rubbery and fake. But the effects team was able to then adjust it so that the scales wouldn't scale too much, and then what we would call the grout in between the scales would stretch, which is what snakes actually do.
Hi, everybody. I'm Byron Howard. I am one of the directors of Zootopia 2, and I'd like to welcome you to Deadline's The Process.
You are...
Oh, Gary. Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake. Everything is gonna be okay.
Today, my amazing, magnificent guest is animation supervisor. Here he is, even wearing the Walt Disney Animation Studios hat, Adam Green. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing great. No one would recognize me without my hat, I think. I always wear a hat, so like this has become a thing in this.
You look good.
Thank you. I feel good.
I have a big head. I cannot pull off hats.
Oh, I have a tiny head. Actually, this is a fun fact. My head is very small.
We should talk about this the whole
We should talk about this the whole time.
Instead of talking about the hats, let's talk about how did you get into animation in the first place?
Oh, in the first place. Well, funny story. I actually went to school in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Yeah. And there was a high school there, Elmhurst High School. Doesn't exist anymore, fun fact. But there was an animation course in high school. Oh. And it was Autodesk Animator. It was a computer animation program, but it was all traditionally animated. And I animated a couple little short films, and I submitted them to a college that I was interested in going to, and got a scholarship and started learning animation there.
So you knew from very early in your life that you wanted to do this job.
I feel like I did. Yeah, I was very inspired by 90s animated films, Disney movies, and I didn't know that I wanted to do it. I just knew I wanted to do something artistic. I knew I wanted to do something very math heavy. And so I just kind of gravitated towards that, and computer animation fit both of those for me perfectly.
Was there like one seminal film that you saw that was like, that's it for me, I got to do this, that you got you into animation in the first place?
I think Aladdin.
Oh, yeah.
Aladdin was the one, yeah. And it's amazing because for me personally, being able to come to Disney Animation and not only work here in the building and with the people who made that film, but specifically Eric Goldberg, who became a mentor of mine. I worked with him closely on Get a Horse and other films. And on this film, he did some 2D animation tests for us for Gary the Snake. Being able to work with those people who are just geniuses in their own right and artistic powerhouses and just great, kind, loving, wonderful people. Yeah, that was a dream come true for me.
Yeah, Eric is really one of the titans of Disney Animation and the history of the studio. He is a storehouse of everything you could possibly want to know about animation, not just Disney, but also Warner Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Anime. He's really a walking encyclopedia, and he's cute as a button. When Eric sits down to do one of those initial tests on Gary the Snake, which you supervised, what is Eric doing with that first test? What's the point, and what does he bring to it?
Yeah, so I remember Kira Letomaki and Chad Sellers, who were the heads of animation on this show, they saw that Eric had a few weeks available in between other projects he was working on, and just immediately jumped on him. They're like, okay, Eric, will you do a test for us? And of course, Eric was like, yes, I would love to. And we really just, he was familiar with the film. He had seen some of the sequences, and so he had a kind of a base to start with. But the assignment was do whatever you feel like is going to push the entertainment, push who he is as a character, taking what's in the story and just fleshing it out. And with someone like Eric, you just want to get what they're going to give you, you know? And so that's what he did. And a lot of the things that he did in that first test, he was one of the things that blew us away was how he used Gary's body as a performance tool to like make him gesture and make him, articulate the lines and things like that. And we were just, everyone who saw those tests just were blown away, and really motivated us as a team to like push Gary further and as far as we could go. And, it's funny. One of the things that he did in that was he animated Gary with eyelids.
Oh.
And and it kind of hit us. We were like, oh, Gary doesn't have eyelids. And so that allowed us then to further take that test and explore it. How would we do and get the same sort of like, performance that he got, but without the use of upper eyelids. And so that kind of was a challenge on this film, because how we really at Disney really care about the truth in materials and the truth in like nature, especially with Zootopia, as you well know. And snakes don't have eyelids.
That's true. They don't. But they're still adorable.
Yeah.
Just like Eric Goldberg. He's Eric has eyelids. But that is true. Like one of the things that really, the first film taught us is that being true to the animal's nature and like how they really work, biologically in the world, and these sort of very specific things.
Yeah.
That makes it more special. But I got to say, Gary is one of the most emotional characters I've ever seen, like emotionally compelling characters. As soon as you guys started moving him around, and then as soon as Kiwi Kwan, the amazing voice actor who portrays Gary, as soon as those elements came together, there was something really magical. Can you talk about your Key's performance?
Sure.
How you started working with him?
So, okay, this is such a great story, and I love that we get to tell this. So, early on in the development of the film, Jared Bush, your co-director, that guy, we all were in a meeting, and we were talking about who he was thinking about for this character, and he played a clip for us, and he was on a talk show, and he played the clip, and the energy of the clip is what he was targeting. He was like, this energy, this like exuberance for life, this desire to be liked, this like all of this is just feeling so good. And he was just going on and on and on and on and on about it. I'm sitting there nodding. This is my character. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And he gets to the end and I go, Jared. And he goes, yes. And I go, you want me to animate this clip, right? And he goes, would you? And so I went away for a couple weeks. I took an early rig that we had of Gary, edited down the clip because it was a really long clip, edited it down to a manageable length, and started animating it. And I gotta say, sometimes when you're working on a movie, getting the performance right is a struggle. And you're trying to marry a character with the voice actor, and you gotta kind of power through it and make it work. With this, it just happened. It just blended so well together. The texture of his voice, the cadence, the way he was vulnerable, the way he was entertaining, just straight out right away. All I had to do was just take what he did and just apply it to this character. And I have to give credit to Jared, honestly. I mean, he was the one who was sort of like driving that creatively. And for me, it just kind of like all came together, and I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, there's Gary, there he is. And so, took that to a meeting a couple of weeks later, showed it, and everyone felt the same way. So I really can't take credit. It's credit to Jared. It's credit to the character designer, and the modelers, and all the, like, it was modeled by Alina Wooten, and it was,
Her Loftus, I believe, did the
yeah, actually, it's Alina Loftus. I forgot she got married. I've known her for so long. I've known her for like over 20 years. I used her maiden name. Sorry, Alina. And then Chris Pedersen, who did the rig. It was his first rig that he ever did in our new software. Wow. And so all of these teams came together, and it's just one of those filmmaking moments where it just was magic. It just happened.
Yeah, it's just so natural. And I think, when I heard you guys were talking about Key, his voice, for a snake, and like a lot of people are uncomfortable with real life snakes. Our producer, Yvette, is very uncomfortable with real snakes. Like, this is a safety thing. But when Key's name came up as the voice, I thought that is such a fresh, unexpected choice for this character, especially as your stepping stone into the world of reptiles. Because, in the past, we've done amazing things with traditionally animated snakes. So we have Ka in Jungle Book, we have Sir Hiss, which is a film I love, but both villains. And this snake, Gary, is not only a hero in the story, but he is really the emotional center of why Judy and Nick care, like why the audience has to care, his story, his family coming back to Zootopia.
Yeah.
And when I saw all of this coming together, not only is the voice unexpected, but I remember Corey Loftus, our production designer, talking about the choice to make Gary blue.
Mm-hmm.
And blue is an incredibly rare color in the world of mammals. Like if you look at the first film, none of those characters have any blue on them, like with the fur whatsoever. So not only is Gary an outsider and unusual because he's a reptile, but, and also because he's a snake, but because he's in a palette of non-blue, he is a very, very beautiful, unusual, this beautiful sapphire blue. So just, and then it's just to see you guys dive in and talk about it. And then so like, as you guys were getting together as a team, would you have snake meetings? Would you kind of get together and talk about like your favorite things that were happening?
We had a standing snake meeting every week. And so one of the cool things was that Gary is not only a complex character emotionally and performance-wise, but he's a technically complex character. And you wouldn't think he's a snake, right? He's a head with a body. That's it. But we've got scales. We've got no eyelids. So we got to figure that out. He has not only a regular tongue that he needs to like articulate his acting with, but he has a serpent tongue as well.
That's fascinating too. And and they're both in there.
They're both in there. We try really hard not to show them at the same time because snakes have one tongue, but in animation, we had to kind of hide it so that okay, so here's the full story. He looks appealing with his tongue being what we call the cartoon tongue. But you do need a snaky tongue for when he does his S sounds when he speaks or when he's, just as a performance thing. And so we were like, what do we do? Do we have his tongue scale to be smaller for that moment and then go back? Or do we always have it be the serpent tongue? And we tried different things and it just never worked out right. And I was talking with Eric about this actually. And I was like, what do we do? And he's like, just have two tongues. Just like have two tongues, and sometimes you show this tongue, and sometimes you show that tongue. And he goes, go look at Sir Hiss in Robin Hood. He does that, and I was like, oh. And so we're like trying to like figure this out, and like it had been solved already for us. And so I went back and looked at Robin Hood and Sir Hiss. He has a regular tongue, but then every once in a while the serpent tongue flicks out. And so we're like, you know what? We're gonna do it like that because that's been done, and it's like a little homage to Robin Hood.
I've seen that film a million times. I never realized that.
Yep.
No, that is crazy. And also, what I love about this place too is that this place, we work with about 750 plus people on each of these films here in Burbank and also in Vancouver. So with two locations, one amazing animation family getting together to make these movies work. I love that it's about great storytelling, but it's also about great technology. And the fact that every time a story asks us to do something new, like Gary, our first real CG central snake character, we have all of these issues and problems and challenges that we have. Can you talk about Scoot?
Sure.
A second?
I could talk about Scoot. Scoot was a scale authoring tool that was developed by our effects team. And so Gary is one of the challenges with this character is that he has scales. They are geometric scales. I think it's 2,400 scales along his body, something like 400 in his face. It's like a crazy amount of scales. And in animation, you can cheat and you can stretch the character and you can do literally anything with it. And when you do that, it immediately starts to feel fake. It immediately starts to feel like it's been made by the computer, and we want it to feel like it's a real character that's alive, that's breathing, that is able to do all of these things we're asking it to do. And so we had to be very smart how we made his body inflate and get smaller or stretch or whatever and make it still feel real. And so Scoot was a piece of software and it was art directable. It basically grew scales on his body procedurally, but based on where the artist would place it and based on where the actual scales were in the model itself. And so the cool thing about it, how it worked was, so it would plant these basically like scale seeds. And if we in animation would scale his body up, like if he, like, for example, when he was, the shot that I animated where he was throwing up the book, I scaled his body up so you could see like the book in his neck. But if you do that, it scales the scales up and it looks really rubbery and fake. But the effects team was able to then adjust it so that the scales wouldn't scale too much, and then what we would call the grout in between the scales would stretch, which is what snakes actually do. So like when they eat a big meal, their body gets really fat. Wow. The scales scale up a little bit to stretch, but mostly it's the skin stretching between the scales. And so we had to like basically mimic that, but artistically. And so that was a huge challenge. Of course, you watch the movie, you're not thinking about that. You're just seeing a snake throw up. But there's a lot of technology that's built in, and meetings upon meetings upon meetings of tests. There's like probably 24 tests of like, there's this version, there's this version, there's this version, and there's a wedge, and we're going to look at all of them. And so, yeah, we would spend hours and hours and hours just to make it look right, so that when, you're watching the movie, you don't think about it, and you just are enjoying the performance.
That's fascinating. What I love about that too is there's a sort of dedication from real life. This is why working at Disney Animation is like going to school for a living, because we do look at real animals. We actually have like live drawing classes, animals in the wild. They sent us to Africa for the first film. But I love that dedication to looking at what the real world is and bringing that into what you guys do. And the scales are a huge part of that. And, one of the things I just think is just so great, like is the fact that you all also work as a community. Like animation can be a very lonely job. Like you can be at your desk or at your drawing table, very much isolated from your companions and fellow filmmakers. But these guys get together socially. It's like you're a very social department, aren't you? Animation.
Yeah, the animation department is very social. I would say, because we're like the actors, right? And so we need to bounce things off of each other all the time. And some people choose to work in isolation. But when you're developing a character, it's really important. So how it works is the first year or so of working on a film as a supervisor, you're developing the character. And so it's all about the tech. It's all about the rig. It's all about the model. It's all about the art direction. It's all about the trying to fit the character that's been designed in 2D and make it in 3D, but make it believable. There's, all the technology of figuring that out. That's like a year of like, pre-production. And one of the cool things about it is that there's many times where you're sitting there working on that stuff. And again, it's isolating. You're like, I'm making this thing, and oh my gosh, what are people going to think about it? And it's a year of like keeping the secret. And then the next year is making the film. And that's when things get, well, I guess I should say, when you're developing the rig and the model and stuff, there's a small team, and you guys are all working together very closely, solving problems, being artistic, working out that technology. And that it's almost like, it's kind of like Formula One racing a little bit, where you're building the car, right? And then once you get the car built, now you got to go in and drive that thing. And that's when animation comes in, and we work as a team, and we're like, all the stuff that we learned from pre-production, all the tricks, all of the performance tips and stuff that we've done early on now gets disseminated. And so make a whole bunch of documentation about what we learned and how to use it. And you have a team jump on. And one of the cool things that I loved about this character is that we tried so hard, and our rigging team, man, I got to give it to them, really made a rig that not only could do a lot of things, but was very user friendly. So people could jump on and animate a snake right away, which is not easy to do. And like you said, it's not a character that, not a species that we'd ever done before here at Disney Animation, not in CG. And so there was a lot of trepidation. There was a lot of people being like, oof, I don't know about that, but we had to get it done. So it's like, you're animating a snake. And so they would jump on and start doing it.
I heard you say tricks in that, and we asked you to do some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Gary, can you give us an example of a couple tricks?
Oh, sure.
That you learned with Gary?
Okay. So a couple things. One, I got to give credit to Joe Hallmark for this. He is one of our awesome animators, and there's a shot that he animated on the film. And if those of you listening to this, you can watch it. It's the sequence where, spoilers, Gary steals the journal and he wraps Linksley up and yanks him off stage. He used, I think, 5 Garys in that shot. He like stitched them together. So like he would take a Gary, and then he would take another Gary, and he would scale his head down so it was tiny. He would put him inside that Gary.
Yeah.
and then to make him a little bit longer because he needed to wrap him around. But he had designed a pose that was so complex that it needed to be much longer. So he used either 2 or 3 Garys to make that pose. But then one of the things we have to tackle in CG animation is motion blur. And so that's when things move so quickly that they blur. But with Gary, not only do you have to deal with motion blur for one snake, you had to deal with motion blur for multiple snakes because he used multiple snakes to make this pose. So his trick for this was he created that animation, but then he duplicated it onto 2 other Garys and then keyed the visibility on and off so there wasn't weird motion blur between frame 1 and frame 2.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you watch this shot in the software, it's Gary's wrapping around Linksley and yanking him off stage, but it's 2 or 3 to make that pose, and then he's keying every other frame on and off so the motion blur works correctly.
So are you guys individually like figuring this stuff out, and then do you all get together in a room and say, hey, look what I did, look what I figured out?
So I'm the animation supervisor for Gary. I walked over to Joe's desk, and I was like, well, how are you doing this? And he explained it to me, and I was just like, that's genius. And then I walked away.
Oh, I love that because it's not like the software sometimes isn't designed to do what you guys need. So I love that there's a bit of hacking involved. And I love that it's, it's jerry-rigged. I also remember another spoiler is that there is a scene at the end of the film, a very emotional scene with multiple snakes and a big hug scene. Yeah. I remember that one was super crazy.
Oh, yeah.
That also has an Indiana Jones Easter egg if you're looking at that. If you know what I mean, look at the end, look at the hats in that hugging scene, and there's a little nod to Mr. Spielberg and to a film that Key may have been in back when I was 10 years old. But anyway, that's another example of where you guys did something amazing. And often Jared and I as directors will be working with our story team to get the story correct and as strong as possible. And our story artists, who are amazing, are working in rough drawings. So those drawings are really how we build the film in the first place. But then it goes to you guys to go figure it out how to do this. And that's sort of how do you feel when you get something like that on your desk? Or is it daunting, or do you like that kind of thing?
It depends. I would say for that shot in particular, the one where Gary's family shows up and they all wrap up into a hug. So we have an animator at the studio, Kevin Webb. So I was sharing an office with him temporarily, and I remember looking over at him. I was like, hey, this shot looks pretty tough. And he goes, yeah, it sure does. And I was like, do you want to animate it? And he was like, okay. And so he stepped up to the plate. I think that shot was bid for something like 3 weeks or 4 weeks to do. And I think he got it done in like 2 weeks or something. Because he has that, I think he has that in him where it's like, okay, I'm going to solve this problem and I'm going to do it in an entertaining way. And so just one of those things where, you know how when you're challenged at something and you don't think you can do it, and it sounds, I'm speaking on his behalf, I'm assuming this, but because of that, you rise to it and you go, no, I'm going to defeat this. And I think that's the spirit of this studio. I think that's the spirit that I have, where it's like, oh, we can't do that. Is that too hard to do? Great, let's do it.
I love that. Just to say, one of the reasons I think we're both here at Disney Animation is this place has 100 years of incredible artistry, with science and learning and dedication to great storytelling. I think you're right. I think there's something. Tell me if you feel the same way. Something about animation brought together everything I loved, which was art and film and music and acting and direction and cinematography. Like it is this great hybrid playground where everybody on the film is asked to be a filmmaker. So much of the film that you're seeing out in the theater doesn't come from Jared or I. It really comes from these guys, amazing partners who are making these films together. And it's like, I think we have that dedication to telling a great story with humor and pathos and emotion. And that really does fall to our crew, who really team together. And I love that you guys talk to each other and support each other. Like here, I never get the feeling like it's competitive. I feel like in the world of Hollywood, which could be a tricky place to work, there's a lot of egos in Hollywood. It's a surprise to people, but it's I love that you guys are there for each other. You have each other's backs. You prop each other up. You show each other what you're proud of. And then there's an emotional attachment to not just your success, but the success of the people you're leading and the people who are, working with us to get the film done. So I'm immensely proud of you And I'm immensely proud of this place and what we all do together. Yeah. It's just like, and I'd say, oh, actually, I forgot to mention, there's a frying pan scene.
This is our only chance to set things right. And when I do, my family will finally be able to come home.
Woo! I am here. Pops and Wild. Dream Team. We got him.
So there's a scene in the movie where Nick hits, so many spoilers, Nick hits Gary in the head with the frying pan. And I remember someone did it in the boards, and I forget who mentioned it. It might have been you, it might have been Jared. Somebody was like, we can use the frying pan from Tangled, right? Yeah. And they were like, oh, yeah. And so, it's bought and paid for. The frying pan has its own agent, I've found out, kind of trying to get leverage to the next Spielberg film, I think. Yeah, figuring out the frying pan lore here. But it's fun because for me, it was interesting because I got to animate that shot where Nick hits Gary with the frying pan, but it's the same frying pan that was in Tangled, which I did also animate. So it's, see? And so maybe that might be the thing that I've animated the most at Disney Animation is that frying pan, because it was in Zootopia 2, it was in Tangled, and it was also in Once Upon a Studio, which I also animated.
You have a frying pan legacy going on. Are you looking forward to animating more cookware?
I hope I do nothing but frying pan animation in the future. Well, you know what the funny thing is in Once Upon a Studio, it's the scene where Ka is walking after Clarabelle, and he's trying to like hypnotize her, and Rapunzel walks past him. She's like, don't worry, I got this. And she's spinning her frying pan, and she hits a snake with it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right? It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. You hit on something earlier when you said animation feels like everything comes together. Mm-hmm. And this is a real story. I remember being in 5th grade, and I was in the hallway, and a 5th grade teacher asked me, I think that's around the age you start asking yourself, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they asked me that. And I was like, I don't know. And they were like, you love math? I was like, I do love math. And they're like, can you love drawing? I was like, I do love drawing. And they were like, I wonder if there's something someday where you can put those two things together. Mm-hmm. Not having any idea that they just outlined my future 100%. Yep. That it went from me loving math and art to being a CG animator.
Yeah, exactly.
And I still remember that like it was yesterday. I've never forgotten that comment. It's such a strange thing, honestly, for me as an artist, that it was predicted in that moment, or maybe it planted a seed in me that I would seek out something that I would enjoy both disciplines. Because CG animation, while you don't use math every day, but you have to have an understanding of it. You have to have an understanding of because there's a lot of technology and a lot of a basic understanding of geometry and all kinds of math stuff to get it right and to use those tools to then inform and guide your artistry. Yeah. And so, for me, that's like an amazing thing to get to do every day.
Yeah, and I got to say, coming from, I started in traditional animation back on Pocahontas and Mulan, original Lilo and Stitch and stuff, and seeing the kind of control you guys have now, the subtlety and the mastery that you have, not only of acting but also physics, which I think is a really rewarding thing. Like I always felt like if I can get the physics right, if I can make that cloth feel like it's the right weight of cloth, or if I can make that character feel like they weigh 1,000 pounds or 5 pounds, or that energy that's moving through the body. Like you and I worked with Glenn Keane on Tangled. So another example of traditional animator like Eric, who worked with us on many films, Zootopia 2, but on Tangled, Glenn Keane, who had shepherded that Rapunzel character for so many years, worked with us in every daily session, doing amazing drawings. He saved our butts with the hair technology because the technology for that hair was just not there yet. And our tech folks were just brilliant, and they worked with Glenn on every frame. But seeing him kind of craft that traditional, the anatomy and the appeal and the cartooniness, actually, which surprised me sometimes. Like Glenn would do something very cartoony. But I love that there is this dedication to really, when you nail a scene, it can be about the acting, it can be about the physics, it can be about the appeal or the pose of the character, or maybe you define something new for a character like Adam. I'll see Adam do something with characters that he's supervising, and that will set a template for other people on his crew and also for around on the studio in the studio who are working on the film. And I think once you hit a tone that Jared and I really led up to, it was like, oh, that is the tone exactly for this. For example, like you guys had some very challenging stuff in the control room scene with Gary when he's nearly freezing to death, and Judy, who's been hit with venom, spoiler. But just the subtlety that you guys had to deal with, because to get across the fact that Gary was struggling to get across the floor to Hops, shivering at the same time, and also those very, very, very specific reads that Key gave us I remember Key did this over and over again because he really wanted to get it right, but this feeling of breathlessness, of struggle, and also something emotionally reassuring to Hops, who has really lost hope at that point.
Yeah.
And Gary had to carry that. But just the amount of stuff that we ask you guys to do, and the fact that you are willing to not kill us when we're in dailies. Dailies is a very tough moment because animators have to produce what they think the scene is. Then we all come together, and they're very brave, and they look at it with us on the screen. And then we all dive in there and critique it. And we figure it out. But you guys are wonderful to work with, and it's a great moment for us.
That sequence in particular, I supervised that sequence, and I got a great group of animators. I got really lucky, and they just dove in and worked so hard to get that right. And honestly, it's one of those things, again, it goes back to teamwork, where it got set up to that moment where the team just had to execute, and we'd already had the reads from Key that were so good, and we got the reads from Jenny that were so good, and so it's just like we just needed to execute what was in that moment. And luckily that sequence came late in the film, and so we'd already done a lot with Gary to figure out who he was. Something you touched on that I think is so right, and maybe people who are watching this don't know, is that the animation is all done by hand. Like there isn't like a cheat code. It's all done frame by frame from the animator's brain. You just have a complex tool to do it with. And so you have to ground your performance in reality. You have to ground your performance in something that's believable. As soon as you make it not heavy enough or too heavy, it starts to lose its believability. But then there's a layer that goes on top of that that's very believable and very real. Come from our other teams, from tech anim and from simulation and from lighting and effects, that put like this layer on top of everything else that's also so artistically driven, that then support that performance, and that everything kind of ties together in a way where you have a whole team of people all aiming towards a thing. That can be like, for example, when you're talking about Rapunzel, we animated her with the idea that she'd be wearing a dress, but you have to get the physics right. Yeah. But you also have to push the physics beyond what's right to cartoony. And then cloth has to come in and go, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this and make it feel like it's a real dress, but also push the cartooniness as well. And so there's so much that's going into the craft of animation. It really does take a village to make it as good as, I'm proud to say, as good as I think it looks when it's on the final screen.
I love that. Just saying. Is there, I really, on Andreas Deja years ago, when I was first starting as an animator, he reminded me that these films are forever, right? Like as soon as you kind of put that scene down and you turn it in, that's on screen for the rest of history. So it's really good to take the trouble to care about it. And I love that you guys are a team. And I love that, we have our entire crew, they're all filmmakers in their own rights, and the care and the craftsmanship and the fact that these films are handmade, I think is incredible. So, I mean, I love working with you.
I love working with you too. We've worked together since Bolt.
I know, such a long time ago.
I know.
Like, let's do it again.
Yeah.
And congratulations on creating like a wonderful character with Gary. And, well, it's just a pleasure. Always.
It was a pleasure getting to work on this character. For me, when 2 years ago, when I saw the first artwork come out from this film, I was like, that I have to work on that character. And so thank you for the opportunity for getting to, and for, I think, making one of the most interesting and most fun characters that we've made in a long time. And I feel very, very, very grateful.
I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful to Deadline for the process. This is awesome. Should do this forever. Thank you, Deadline. And thanks for having us, and have a great day.